So, in one of the earlier episodes we have done since the start of the campus Intifada, we spoke about how at some point, if the police keep standing down and not doing their job, as you would expect in anarchy, which is what you have when the government doesn't do their job,
As you would
people
expect in
people will actually get together and fight back, and that is what we have seen in UCLA over the past 24 hours or so. UCLA is one of the more, as far as we can tell from here, one of the more violent of the sites of this Intifada, and students have been attacked. So maybe we should start with some background and see how what was going on, and let's play. I don't remember. We have a few clips of what happened before, so let's see one of those.
We're going this way. You guys have closed the entrance. We are UCLA students. I have my ID right here. I'm being blocked off, not by the security guard, but by you two. You three. Oh, look, they're making their burger while I'm going this way. Excuse me. This is what they do. Everybody, look at this. Look at this. I'm a UCLA student. I deserve to go here. We pay tuition. This is our school. And they're not letting me walk in. My class is over there. I want to use that entrance. Well, I can't take it. Will you let me go in? This could be over in a second. Just let me and my friends go in to class.
We're not engaging in that.
Then you can move. Well, you move.
We're not engaging in that.
Okay, we're going. We're going. I'm going in. I have my hands up. I'm not hurting them. I'm not hurting them. That's what they do. That's what they do, everybody. You guys are promoting aggression. You guys are promoting hate. We're UCLA students. We deserve to be there. Let's go.
So yeah, they see a Jewish student. They get together, of course, with their kafiyas, with their terrorist fashion, and block him from entering. This has been going on in UCLA for a few days. We've already seen that student before when he was debating. Can we say that a professor who tried to define genocide and then couldn't, and then asked around for help, and nobody helped her, and she was shouting and angry. So yeah, you know what? Yeah, let's discuss this, and then we can go to some of the rest. Jonathan, your first thoughts on what we saw there and what we've been seeing in UCLA.
It's very hard for me to find words to describe these humanoids. What a bunch of snowflakes you can really see on their faces, with the masks. You can't see who they are, and they form this gang, this mob, and they're not gonna allow the Jews in. At least the SA troopers, they didn't have masks on. They were proud of their ideology. These guys, perhaps they know, like somewhere, that this is wrong. That's why they're not showing their faces. But to do racial segregation, which is what the Palestinians themselves are arguing that Israel is guilty of, in what light does that portray these guys, and how can people take seriously their claims that Israel is in the wrong after that? They look like clowns, and these videos are really silly. It's hard for me to articulate.
Yeah, I mean, one of one of the reasons they hide their face is because they want jobs in the future, and the Jews control everything. So where are they going to get jobs if they're openly anti-Semitic? Also, there's bravery in numbers there. We talked about it before when we talked about Colombia on the Daily Objective, and yeah, these students are very brave when there's or students, the protesters or rioters, when there's 10 or so anti-Semites and one Jew, they're very brave. When they were up against the cops, they were not so brave. But yeah, Michael, your initial thoughts on what's going on there.
Well, I mean, you always have idiots that can behave like idiots. I mean, every society has a bunch of people that will find any excuse to be bullies or gang up on other people. I think this is a problem, frankly, of lack of leadership, no leadership on the part of the heads of UCLA, the inability of the Los Angeles mayor. I mean, this is a state school. Where the governor of California was involved with the state school property is beyond me. I mean, I know where they were. Where the mayor of Los Angeles was on state school property, people that are paying money to get to class. And there's no question that these people violated any number of school ordinances, never mind general public ordinances, and probably committed, I'm not a lawyer, but I would assume there's at least some kind of battery here, or at least assault and battery of some kind. Criminal offenses by essentially blocking this perfectly peaceful identified student who paid tuition and wanted to get to his class. There's no question that multiple laws had been broken here for many days. And there's no law I'm aware of in the US that allows people to encamp on college campuses, whether they're public or private schools, and set up barricades at all. So the notion that this was peaceful is absurd, because barricades, there's nothing peaceful about barricades. But the real fundamental problem is the complete and utter lack of leadership on the part of the school, the city, and the state of California to defend minorities, in this case Jews, when we know that they are at the forefront of defending minorities such as gays and blacks and so on. I would blame them entirely. I am disappointed that there aren't lawsuits already. Multiple I don't mean a few lawsuits. I mean every single kid who was denied entry there should be multiple lawsuits. They should be class action. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but where is the legal outcry and the business outcry?
Yeah, later on the show, we're going to hear a phone call by a parent to UCLA police, which is which tells you where the authorities are, and it's not the answer you want to hear. Morgan.
There's obviously been a lot of videos like this, and unfortunately, the response that they get on social media is that, well, the student protesters are being peaceful, and when we get to the violence that breaks out at UCLA a bit later on, I don't doubt that they'll say that it was the counter protesters who were being violent, because then what you see is, people whacking each other, fists start to fly. And unfortunately, people seem to have a really narrow and shallow notion of what using force or violence really is, because that's, as you say, Michael, that's exactly what those students are using there to stop that kid going into campus. I don't know how they identify him other than the fact that he's got a Star of David on his chest to stop him going in. So when people are saying as well that these aren't discriminatory in any way, I don't know on what basis you can possibly claim that. And people need to just rethink exactly what the use of force is, because if you are blocking someone from going somewhere that they have the perfect right to go, then you are forcibly stopping them from entering. And that goes for any protest, even protests where people are blocking traffic, but they're walking at like 1 mile an hour down the road. You're still using force to stop them. They're not trying to be rational or persuade them. And, Rand makes the case quite persuasively in her essay, The Nature of Government, that if the use of force like that is left up to individual civilians, and then the police won't intervene, and the other individuals on the other end of the force have to retaliate, then society just breaks down and becomes an intolerable kind of anarchy. And I think that's ultimately why we ended up seeing full-on violence break out at the camps on UCLA, because the police, by not intervening, or not by being not called to intervene, are demanding of the students who are being victimized, like that kid right there, that they be victims. And ultimately, people will eventually push back and say, that's not what we're going to be. And it's not only did the police have to break this up because the students have no right to go to those encampments, but because people will push back eventually. And you can't just have violence breaking out in society like that.
So let's see another incident of a Jewish person or a pro-Israel person being attacked in UCLA. This is still before the retaliation or the Jews fighting back. This is let's play it.
Being your blood.
So he's physically assaulted. The sign is torn, and then there's a taser there being used against him. So I don't know if there's much more to say about this, but if anybody wants to have a go on what we just saw, and
we see these sites in Israel, you know, in the West Bank, these little Palestinian girls trying to attack Israeli soldiers or Israeli civilians, whatever. It's the same kind of thing. She's a terrorist, and it's really outrageous that in U.S. universities you have terrorists attacking other students. I think there should be a really big outrage on that, and other instances, and especially given that it's a public university. Not that there should be a public university, but this is a public property, public U.S. property, and the U.S. doesn't protect its own citizens. What an outrage!
Yeah, I wanted to add to that. I think again, what I don't understand is where is the outrage? And whether you're Jewish or not Jewish, the fact that this occurred at any university, but that a person was attacked like this and accosted, and clearly in almost any other situation, those people would have been arrested immediately because they did commit assault and battery. Clearly, we have a video of it. There's no secret to who it is. And the several people that were directly involved with physically actually attacking this person who was holding a sign. I don't understand why we're so quiet here in America. I do understand that it's not cool to support people like this because Jews are successful, and it's not cool to support people. This has to stop. But we have to call on the people that are successful to stop it. We can't have these sort of muddy, oh, it's a shame I'm not giving money to my college anymore because they're treating my people like third-class citizens or animals. It has to be much more directed at serious, like big lawsuits. They have to be getting rid of the president of UCLA needs to go. Clearly, the board of trustees needs to be held accountable, if not go. And the whole thing needs to be looked at. There doesn't need to be a happy sort of thoughtful response here. If this were any other group of people, if this were a black person, if that happened, the FBI would be investigating a hate crime. There's no question about it in anybody's mind. And yet we keep talking about it as if it's sort of just, well, that's what happens when college students behave that way, et cetera. So I would like to see a bit more use of the actual laws that are in place. And if there is not going to be business and monetary pressure coupled with legal action, we're never going to see a change to this until some people are killed.
I also think that people need to stop pretending really that all these kids are is just students. Like, not only just because they're covering their faces, but because of what they're doing. We should just identify them as thugs. And not even just the fact that she attacked him, but the way she sort of cracks the taser to kind of scare him. It's really just rank intimidation. And again, people need to be doing a lot of soul searching about, it's not just like one of our students is coming out and attacking people. They're coming out and doing this on a large scale. And they're doing so in the name of the ideas which we're teaching them. What is it about what we're teaching them which would lead them to act in this way? And yet there's going to be none of that soul searching. At best, what there'll be is, once this is kind of gone to the wayside and swept under the rug, people will continue business as usual. And that is what can't be allowed. And yet, unfortunately, I think that is exactly what will happen.
So let's see what the authorities actually are doing in UCLA. Let's listen to this phone call. Now, this is pretty long. We might cut it like halfway through, discuss some of it, but I think the whole thing should be listened to. It really is pretty shocking.
They said because he's Jewish, he cannot enter that area, and that they won't issue him a wristband.
So that wasn't a university thing. That's probably the protesters that are out there.
Right. So are the protesters allowed to not allow a student who pays tuition access to their class in the library?
No, they're not allowed, but unfortunately they have kind of taken over that little area right there. But is there any other entrance that your son can enter through?
No, they are barricading every area for him to get into. And you know, with all due respect, why is that even tolerated? Like, why should a Jewish kid have to go to another entrance?
It's not, I don't know if I'm going to say it's tolerated, but unfortunately the police are not intervening with that right now. And this is coming from the university, so if you had any questions or concern, you would take it with the university itself.
So the university has taken a stance that they will not, in fact, allow or help Jewish students get to their classes. That this is going to be tolerated.
They have, we've received a directive to not intervene at this time, yes.
And what is at what point have they given a directive to you at what point you should
Let's pause
intervene?
it. Let's pause it here. So, yeah, there are several pretty shocking moments there. One is the suggestion that maybe there should be a Jewish entrance, a separate entrance for the Jews, because the anti-Semites don't want Jews entering from the main entrance. But yeah, the whole, they're not allowed to do this, but we're not going to do anything about it. That's anarchy. That means, laws don't mean anything. Well, you're not allowed to murder, but, if you do it, so be it. I mean, Jonathan.
Yeah, again, with the apartheid issue, they accuse Israel of being an apartheid state, but they are actually exercising apartheid forcefully in that public university. The weakness, the weakness of the authorities of the university, the moral weakness, their inability to say that this is wrong, is really, really outrageous. And I agree with Michael and everything he said. The fact that there isn't such a moral outcry, these lawsuits, shows you that there is something deeply degenerate about the state of the state of the world in general, and the state of this university in particular. So very, very concerning.
Michael.
Yeah, I mean, I'll add a little fuel to that fire. We should all remember that the president, I should say the disgraced president, ex-president of Harvard, who stepped down from the presidency, is still teaching at Harvard with all of her accolades and her full professorship and a very, very high salary. This is a woman who thought that calling for the extermination of Jews in a context was acceptable, if the context was acceptable. And I would submit, and I'm happy to have data that are contrary to this, that most likely over 80% of humanities departments across the entire United States are probably guilty of teaching sort of oppressor versus oppressed views, that anybody who is perceived or can, I quote, identify, because that's what they talk about now, as oppressed is allowed to pretty much do anything they want. And the people that are, quote, the oppressors, unquote, would just suck it up. This is what humanities departments are teaching. The reason I single out humanities is because I think in most math and sciences, I sure hope in engineering courses where people actually have to make things that work and don't collapse, that we're actually teaching about facts and mathematics and right and wrong answers. In humanities, there is no more right and wrong. There's no more good and evil. Everything is morally equivalent, and history doesn't make any difference. As long as you have a grievance, you have full right to do anything. This is This is currently the United States liberal arts, armamentarium, and teaching. And I think this is what is rotting America to the core. These students who are, as you said, they are snowflakes, they are morons, and they don't understand anything. And what I truly would love to see these students, because they're mostly all over 18 years old, so they are adults by law. I would like to see them deported to countries that they profess to support. They think Iran's a great country. They think Gaza under Hamas is the place to be, go to Saudi Arabia. All the women should go to Saudi Arabia. They will have trouble getting their driver's license still, but they support these amazing countries. And they all scream, if they're not screaming death to America and death to Israel, they're screaming something to that effect. Oh, I think we all need to wake up. We all being those of us that are successful, that work, that pay taxes, that have agreed that life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that reason, purpose, and self-esteem, to put it in Randian terms, are the way to live a good life and the way to establish some happiness in life and pride in what we do. These kids are devoid of pride, they're devoid of self-esteem, and they frankly don't understand anything. And we need to stop pretending that young people who have been trained by disgusting professors, and you see some of them, but frankly, all of the humanities are pretty much guilty of this, that these kids actually understand anything and are worried that their opinions are somehow equal to ours.
Yeah, I want to just to second that. Yeah, there's a lot in universities that is worth studying, and much of the humanities isn't, and where it is, it probably isn't being taught in a way that's worth studying. And I just want to, for people who saw the Daily Objective towards the end, we talked about what was originally going to be the whole topic of the show, which was this student who did a press conference when they were occupying that building and saying that she wants humanitarian aid and so on. So somebody found this student. Her name is Joanna King Slutsky, and she is a paid instructor and PhD candidate at Columbia studying, and I'm quoting the name of what she's studying, theories of the imagination and poetry as interpreted through a Marxian lens. I don't know what that means. I don't know what career you can have other than university professor indoctrinating the next generation in exactly the same thing. What it is that you can, trade in a free market, what value you can trade for real value with that. But again, and you saw her struggling there. This is somebody who's going to get a PhD soon, unless this protest it may have interrupted her studies. But yeah, Dr. Kaufman, this person is also going to be referred to as doctor. Just so and it's not the same kind of doctor. So yeah, that's I think maybe that woman will get her own episode of some show on this channel at some point. She may be a good symbol for what's going on here. Morgan, any thoughts before we continue with the clip?
Well, as someone who studied theories of poetry, unfortunately, she gives the rest of us a bad name, I've got to say. But I can certainly say that there's no value in the free market from the degree that I got. Maybe for a job at ARCUK, UK, but I doubt she's going to get a job here. But I mean, look, just quickly on what you said about the humanities, I completely second that the humanities are completely corrupt, having gone there. I remember one of my friends who studied engineering was at a separate campus to me, just dedicated to the engineering students. And he'd kind of say to me, Morgan, when you complain about all these crazy students, I just don't get it. I just don't see it on my day-to-day life, because he was over there with all the engineering students and I was in the belly of the beast with all these other ones. So yes, I agree that it's the humanities, which is where the corruption lies. As to the call itself, I mean, what utter weakness being shown by the police department there. I mean, I feel slightly for the lady who's having to speak on the phone, because she probably is just acting on instructions. We don't actually know that she agrees with it, but when I said before that it was requiring of the students that they be victims to these kind of people when the police don't intervene, I think that's very much what that parent is being told there, that your student's just going to have to put up and take it, and is going to have to go find another entrance and so on. And I mean, I don't know exactly who that directive is coming from, because I don't know if that's coming from the university who's instructing them that they don't want them to intervene, or whether that's coming from higher up in the police force. But I don't know on what basis you can even be given a directive not to intervene when there is violence going on. Surely the police should just, as soon as they know that that's going on, no one can instruct them not to intervene, not to do anything otherwise. And yeah, it's utterly disgraceful. And not only do the students need to be utterly changed, but the way our police forces work needs to be utterly changed. The fact that in the UK, again, Gideon Falter was stopped from crossing the road on the grounds of being Jewish for his own protection, from the violent crowds, and that the police force seemed to have orders from, from the top, from the commissioner of the Met, in order to not stop these protests because it would be too controversial to do it. That seems to be what the situation is. The police are completely, I think, out of weakness, if not out of agreement, tacitly, implicitly siding with the violent protesters. And how on earth can we tolerate that to continue?
Thank you, Megan, for the super chat, or should I say Dr. Ribbons. She says, I'm a UCLA alum in biochemistry. So again, doctor, but not doctor in, what is it? Theories of the imagination and poetry as interpreted through a Marxian lens. It's biochemistry. It's different. I got an email. It actually has a purpose. I got an email. This is Megan's super chat. I got an email where UCLA had the gall to say they were taking quote immediate action. Daniel, let's play more of that clip where we hear about the immediate action taken by UCLA when this phone call was happening.
To not intervene at this time, yes.
And what is at what point have they given a directive to you at what point you should intervene?
As far as right now, no.
Okay. Is there anything we can do as concerned parents about?
I would suggest contacting the chancellor's office or higher ups in the university with your concerns. I do have a phone number, but I don't know if they're going to answer, if they're going to have a different answer, but I can give you a phone number.
Yeah, could you give me that number?
310 825 2563, and you can ask your questions and express your concerns there and see if they have an answer for you.
Okay, lastly, just so I know, at what point does UCPD get involved? Because if my child's safety...
So if your son needs police assistance, and of course he can contact us.
So I'm calling and saying he needs police assistance to get into his class, that people aren't letting him into his class.
We're not forcing them to move out of the area. That's what, if he needs, like if he's getting attacked or he has a police concern, then yes, but the fact that it's just blocked off, they're not intervening with that right now.
So if he physically gets attacked, at that point we should contact you.
All I'm saying is we're not unblocking the entrances.
So you're allowing the protesters to block the Jewish students from going?
I'm not allowing it.
Yeah.
The school is saying that they will not be removed at this time.
Okay. Thank you so very much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
You're welcome.
So yeah, you notice when she's asking, well, if he's attacked, should I call then? Well, we're just saying we're not doing anything now. By the way, blocking somebody from getting from point A to point B, if it's not your home, that is violence, and that the police should intervene there. I think I missed 2 super chats, so thank you, Gail, and thank you, Jonathan, for the super chats earlier in the show. Yeah, Jonathan, your thoughts on the rest of what we heard on that phone call?
This is dystopian, and I want to say a more general comment. I'm a 3rd generation to a Holocaust survivor, and growing up in Israel, from a very young age, we get bombarded with never again, never again. We hear about the Holocaust, we learn about everything. But it wasn't ever real. It was always so abstract, so far away in distant history, in all these stories, that old people say, and you don't listen to them because it's old stories. But since October 7th, I realized, and I'm sure many Jews realized, that never again is now. And it has already happened, and it will happen again based on these trends. This is the state of the world. These are sites that we have seen in history. We have seen these sites in the 30s, in Germany, in Austria, throughout Europe. We've seen it in Auschwitz and leading to Auschwitz. And Holocaust Remembrance Day is on Sunday, the 5th of May. And I think it's very symbolic that all of this is happening right now. And hopefully this is a wake-up call to all these Jews who still haven't woken up.
Michael.
Yeah, again, I'm not a lawyer, but I learned in high school and about the 14th Amendment and equal protection under the law, and a whole bunch of other laws that I believe should have protected, including our Constitution, mind you, amendments to our Constitution in the US, should have protected this kid. And the police could have frankly offered to escort him to his class, because that would seem to me to be the rational, simple answer. Was, we're not going to unblock him, but the kid is, just because someone didn't punch you doesn't mean it's not violent. If someone's blocking your access to a class that you are free to go to, and it's your decision, not theirs, then that's violence. Just as you said, when protesters block a road, that's violence. So I think this needs to be investigated at the federal level. I think there need to be some resignations. I think there need to be some firings. And then frankly, until the Jewish leadership to start with, and hopefully people who are non-Jewish, because Christians are next, because after these crazy, sort of pro-Iran Islamic militants are done with the Jews, they're moving on to the Christians. They've said it. That's part of the Death to America plan, and also the West. I just don't understand where these people are. Let's see a major federal attack on this situation in New York, in California, in all of the other places. We already have precedents that you can handle these problems very efficiently. We saw it at the University of Florida, where there was zero tolerance for this crap. We saw it in Atlanta, where there was a little bit more tolerance, but it ended up in protesters being tackled and removed. And it turned out some of them are not even from the state of Georgia. Big surprise. And we see it in other places who have decided that they're not going to put up with the rule of the mobs. But in places like New York and California, where they're very happy to support craziness and, as you say, dystopian societies, and make all of us feel guilty for being successful, we're not seeing it. Last thing is, the Jews do have to wake up. My kids who are now 21 and 25 went to a Newton, Massachusetts public school that's considered one of the top in the country. There were swastikas in multiple places, in multiple times over their 4-year tenure in the high school. We would meet with the leadership of the high school, most of which was actually Jewish, including the superintendent and the principal. Basically, the notion of a swastika was considered just kids acting out. And I actually said to the principal, but a swastika stands for the extermination of Jewish people, and also people that are homosexual, and also people that are retarded, and also pretty much gypsies and a lot of other people, but mainly Jewish people. Do you understand that that's what a swastika stands for? Dead silence, no punishment, no investigation. Swastikas continue to this day to be frequently found in mostly Jewish schools, in public schools. And the mayor of Newton, who is Jewish, also doesn't do anything about this. There's no investigation as far as I'm aware. This will continue until we as a group of people, Jews, but we as a civilized nation, America, wake up.
Yeah, and I do look forward to seeing what happens if if some of these students and their parents do sue the universities, because at the very least you're paying for a service, and you're getting not getting the service, you're getting attacked, and you're not defended by the authorities who need to defend you. So let's hope we have at least that, if not the federal government intervening, which I'm less optimistic about. Morgan.
I mean, I think this call should be very instructive to people, mostly because if you're looking at the responses which are coming from the call handler, you can see the contradictions which get entered into, because she says, if he needs police assistance, and the mother says he needs police assistance, she then has to say, oh, well, but we're not doing anything about that. So he can't get police assistance if that's what he needs, because he very clearly needs that. And the police are saying that he's not going to receive any help. And I think people should reasonably ask themselves, how on earth could we end up in a situation like that? And it's because the protesters have managed to wrangle the moral high ground. And I think must be what it looks like when you have a small group of violent radicals who somehow managed to have acquired the moral high ground, so that the people who are meant to come in society and stop violence, i.e. the police, feel completely like they can't do that on the mere word of the university, it seems like. And this is just an utterly absurd situation. I don't really know what else to say about it. But then just, I guess, on the back of what Jonathan and Michael said, I can't say too much else about the anti-Semitism per se, but just that, again, when I was growing up, the kind of, I think, common attitude in the UK was that, meaningful anti-Semitism in Britain stopped in 1945 because people were so appalled by the Holocaust. Except, clearly now we're seeing that anti-Semitism is much more alive in our society, and also just the way people believe that it stopped in 1945 is ridiculous. And ahistorical, because the worst pogroms that happened in the UK in modern times happened in 1947, only 2 years after the Holocaust. So people need to shake themselves out of their lethargy about this and just recognize what's right in front of them.
Thank you, Christian, for the super chat. Christian says, if the government/police doesn't do its job, this will encourage vigilantism. This failure to deal accordingly with the BLM riots led to the Kyle Rittenhouse incident. Something similar could happen here. I completely agree. We mentioned that when things happened first started happening in Colombia, and we actually saw this in UCLA. So Daniel, let's play the first clip we have of students actually fighting back against the terrorists here.
Oh, this guy's bleeding.
All right, just an explanation about the music. So that's an Israeli song, Meni Mamtera, which was played on a loop to some of the terrorists captured on October 7th to sort of cause some discomfort to them, which I'm sure Amnesty International considers a war crime of sorts. But yeah, that was played there, which gives it a little bit of a funny aspect to it, but it is, it is people standing up to violence, and you see the Palestinians are all of a sudden the pro-Palestinian terrorists. There are first of all, they have sticks and stuff, like metal bars, and they're not as keen as they are when it's 10 of them and one Jewish person. Yeah, they didn't seem as comfortable. They're throwing stuff because you can do that from a distance. Jonathan, your thoughts on that?
It's a bit of a circus, isn't it? Yeah, Razi, it is kind of satisfying to see them suffer some of the consequences of standing up to evil, but it's not enough. They should go to jail, these protesters. And I don't know what's the latest news from there, but I hope finally the police did something. Do we have update on that, by the way, Razi, or is it still going on?
I'm not sure if it's still going on. The police were involved. We're going to see a clip of that that later. Actually, a couple of clips.
Okay, so yeah, you know the La Familia guys, Razi, the Beitar fans, the crazy
I am
Beitar.
familiar with them, unfortunately.
It would have been very interesting to see them against these guys, because I'm sure they would all run away, all these pro-Palestinian protesters, as soon as these guys would have entered. I thought that would have been even a more entertaining sight.
Yeah, but this is not a positive thing. I mean, this goes back to Christian's comment in the super chat before. La Familia is you know, they're gangster wannabes. It's a hooligan. It's football hooligans, and you know, that's what we need against this. But apparently, that's what happens. And Ginger, thank you for the super chat.
Anarchy, and in anarchy, you might as well be an anarchist to defend yourself. Nobody's defending these Jewish students. I think they have to stand up for themselves. If the police is not doing this, then the Jews have to do it, as they did, you know, in worse occasions. They have to do it there as well.
Yes, but maybe La Familia is not the best example of who and how. Thank you, Ginger, for the super chat. Ginger says, the children have to fight their battles because the adults are too cowardly to do so is unspeakable. Yeah, I think that sums it up perfectly. Michael.
Yeah, I think you have to, the police are the proximate blame, of course, but they didn't make the policy, right? The policy, let's look at New York and especially California. In many places in California, many crimes have been decriminalized. Many things like shoplifting, if you stay under $1,000 per event. So you can go into 10 stores and steal $999 and you can do it 10 times, it's fine. That's okay. Do it 100 times, doesn't matter, it's not a felony anymore. As long as you stay under that, and they lose business, and that's fine, because apparently that's what the politicians think is the right answer. But this general milieu of no responsibility, no accountability, and no repercussions for your actions is part of the new left-wing liberal, you know, woke baloney that we're all seeing. And that's what you're seeing, the same thing. You saw, you know, you could ask George Floyd. I mean, the George Floyd murder, which is what it was prosecuted appropriately, etc. And it was a horrendous thing. You have to ask yourself, are the rates of murders and serious crime in especially the Black community, the minority communities, higher or lower since we defunded the police? Because that was the brilliant answer there. And guess what? They're almost uniformly much higher, not a little bit higher, much higher. And almost all of that increase is in the minority groups, which were what supposedly the Black Lives Matter movement was supposed to be supporting. The same thing is happening here. There is no chance that this pro-Palestinian movement is going to lead to anything that's positive for America or Israel or, frankly, the whole world. Iran, China, Russia, Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis, etc. They all love this. They love to see America looking like a third world nation, because that's what that looked like. It looked like a brawl amongst a bunch of assholes that are scarved and afraid, and they're big macho people when they're in groups, as you said, but they are a disaster when it comes down to individuals. My unfortunate expectation is, unless the business leaders and the lawyers step in and start to file civil lawsuits and hopefully criminal, you need a DA, you need a district attorney to file a criminal lawsuit. I don't believe that's going to happen. I would be very surprised if the suspensions that are supposed to be happening in LA, UCLA, and in Columbia and City University of New York, if those actually have any bite. There'll be a 3-day suspension, a 7-day suspension, etc. Let's all see what this next week or two, and how many people who are arrested are actually charged. And I would venture to guess that hardly anyone will be charged, including people that directly physically accosted, not just blocked, but physically accosted others. This needs to stop. And until the leaders of our of our civilization, and I mean it that strongly, the leaders of our businesses, our civilization, our way of life, stand up and say, we don't want to live in a society like this, it will continue and it will get worse.
A couple of things, just to the person in the chat calling me a leftist, if you can elaborate on what specifically it is that you're referring to, then I could answer. Also, there's some confusion there about which side is which, because the pro-Israel side also had their faces covered. The pro-Israel side was on the right. The anti-Israel side was on the left. Why they had their faces covered, I don't know, maybe out of concern of, these terrorists finding them and coming after them. But yeah, anyway, that's the situation as it is there. Morgan, your thoughts on that clip?
Well, I mean, just as Jonathan said, it goes to the breakdown into an anarchy. And if it takes people having to retaliate like this for the police to get involved, then unfortunately, I think that is what will have to happen. And and that I mean, very clearly, it shouldn't have to happen. The police are there to not only just stop violations of people's rights, but they're to stop the retaliation from even having to take place. And we'll see then just a greater degree of violence having to break out to meet a threshold for the police to have to get involved. I don't have an amazing amount more to add, but just Michael, you mentioned maybe 20 minutes ago or something that the students who go to Iran, I don't know if you guys saw this, but I think it's called Shiraz University in Iran, offered to any of the students who got expelled or any of the faculty that they could have scholarships to come over there. I think we would benefit a lot if we exchanged these students in the US for the people in Iran who want to live freely. I think it'd be a mutually beneficial exchange. So maybe we should do that.
Absolutely, I support that as well. I don't know if we have time for another clip of the clashes. Maybe we should go, Daniel, to the two clips, and let's play them one after the other, of what happened when the police showed up, the response of the pro-Israel side, and the response of the anti-Israel side. Let's play the next one right away and see the contrast. All right, we get it. They can repeat it. I think one of their heroes says, if you repeat a lie enough times, it becomes the truth. By the way, in case it wasn't clear, one side was chanting USA, USA. The other side was chanting pigs go home, pigs go home. We're not going to tell you who's who. That is a quiz. The winner gets a free live stream of tomorrow's episode of the reality show. Yeah, Jonathan, your thoughts on the contrast there when the police show up to do their job, which they haven't been doing for various reasons up until that point.
Yeah, I think the reason they're calling them pigs is because pigs are haram. According to the Quran, it's a negative thing. You cannot eat pig. Also in Judaism, but they're the pro-Palestinian protesters. That's why I think they're calling them pigs. It's a really bad thing. Yeah, the difference is obvious, right? The Israelis or Jews, whatever, they want a state of law. They want the police to do their job. They want to be able to. All they're asking for is to go on with their studies. They just want to go to their libraries. They don't. They didn't have any like big agenda there. They just want these guys to get out of their way so that they can go on about their business. They have values. They have life to live. They want to go and pursue their studies so they can get a job and have a career and you know, a family, whatever. They have actual values. And these pro-Palestinian protesters, they're just anarchists. They just want to sit there and they want to prevent for the Jews to go on and pursue their values freely. So you have one nihilistic force, essentially. They just want to destroy the values, and you have the value seekers. And the value seekers are identifying that the US is a good thing, right? You want the police, you want law, and the other side wants anarchy. They want them to go away so they can continue with their anarchy, so that they continue to block the Jews from going about their business. I think it's very revealing, and especially that they're calling them pigs. Yeah.
Michael.
Yeah, it's also interesting that the anti-Palestinian group, or at least the anti-protest group, was a lot of them had their masks off at that point, and they were happy to see the police and let them take over and do this. And I think Jonathan said it beautifully. Look, we need to stop mincing words in our culture and pretending that no matter how wrong you are, if you're a little bit right, we have to address it. Because human beings, we're never going to get 100% perfection. And when you have somebody that's striving for perfection, and I don't know what the cutoff is, if you will, but it's certainly not, if your 5% of your grievance is actually factually correct, that's not enough to start a revolution. But we have to start to call people what they are. And like you said, there are people that create a civilization and move humanity forward. And there are a bunch of anarchists, which frankly, almost all of Hamas and Hezbollah are only anarchists. There's not a single thing that Hamas and Hezbollah have added to the world that the world needed. Not a single thing, other than giving people money to be terrorists, which is not something the world actually needs. These groups are only bent on destroying what other people have produced. And we in America seem right now to be focused on groups that pretty much want to tear down, just as we were sort of America effectively supporting the Black Lives Matter movement, which mostly was destructive. Businesses were destroyed, businesses moved out, whole communities were destroyed, people's homes were destroyed, all in the name of nobody knows what, because things are worse now in many of these communities than they were before it. Things are going to get worse if we continue to tacitly or actively support the people who destroy. Rand said it very well, and it's about, she's laughing at all of what's going on because she nailed it 50, 60 years ago. And that is that there are creators and destroyers. And right now, especially in places like California and New York, and just so everyone's clear, I'm a centrist. I'm not on the left or the right, I'm a centrist, and I'm a realityist. And what that means is, if you're nuts in either direction, it ain't gonna work. And we need to focus on people who create. And people going to class and learning are the ones creating. People blocking that and causing bedlam are destroying, and we need to call them destroyers, and we need to stop wasting our time with them.
Morgan.
Unfortunately, I'm running out of synonyms for violent thugs and disgusting scum. I'll have to pull up the Oxford English Dictionary soon. I don't know what else to add beyond what we've already said. It's appalling that the police took so long to go in as they did, and thankfully it seems like they have done. But again, there needs to be a lot of inquiry into why this has been allowed to go on for so long.
So yeah, the person who called me a leftist followed up by saying, Razi Ginzberg, you have certain automatic reactions to certain triggers that are characteristic to Israeli left. That's all. I just noticed psychological patterns, nothing special. You still haven't given me any specific example.
I agree with him. He's right.
But it's a she. Why are you assuming the gender? But yeah, you misspelled my last name twice, like with two letters, which is offensive. It's triggering, and yeah, some other left-wing comment anyway. All right, guys. Before we wrap up, where can people find more from you, Jonathan?
They can find me on my Substack, philosophyineeded.com, link in the description.
Michael, where can people find you?
Best place, LinkedIn, 2 Fs on the Kaufman.
And Morgan, where can people find you, your work?
You can find me at Morgan Carter 98 on Twitter, and you can also find my Substack along with the Twitter in the description.
I am Razi Ginzberg on X. For all your favorite left-wing tweets, follow me. And yeah, we will be back here with the Daily Objective and the reality show tomorrow. Thanks everybody for watching. If you value this content, like it, share it, comment on it, and of course, if you're not subscribed, subscribe. And if you want to support our work and have access to additional content, you can become a member of the Ayn Rand Center UK. We are not yet receiving any funding from the Qatari government or George Soros. So membership is how we are funded. So thank you to our existing members and to those who will join soon. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.